Good. Yeah. I'd like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of Tuesday, July 21st. If you'd please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could please have a moment of silence for Congressman John Lewis, who's a politician in public affairs, involved in public affairs since probably before the march in Selma, along with Dr. King and others. Please be seated. Okay, may we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Here.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Here.
Councilmember Ponce?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Here.
Mayor Marshall?
Here.
And for the record, Scott Campbell is present via the phone.
Good evening, Scott.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Scott.
Announcements and written
Howdy.
communications?
I have one kind of a bad announcement, and that is the DMV contacted me last Wednesday afternoon, and they have canceled for August. So we are just on a wait and see now.
Okay. All righty. And department head reports. Anybody have one? Well, come on, Dan. Yeah.
I'll just go real quick. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Just wanted to, we're in week 3 of our summer program, our limited summer programming. We have got our junior guards program going with 24 kids in it. Seems to be going well for a 7-week program. Both our summer camp and our day camp or summer camp and our junior guards program running 8 kids to a leader. Social distancing, masks are being worn throughout. In our day camp program, we're running 16 kids, limited 16 kids, and we're filling week after week after week. So those that are interested, please sign up online or contact us at the department and we can get you signed up. The only other thing that I've got is I've had a couple parents reach out to me about maybe trying to do something similar to the day camp program during the school year. If businesses are open and parents are going back to work, but schools aren't in session. So we've reached out to the school. We're looking at maybe some ideas on how we could run a program similar to that, and we'd be back to you in front of council to discuss what that might look like.
Great, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
Dan, I have a question for you. This is extremely awkward, but I do want to ask because it was asked of me. How are you guys in the recreation department socially distancing the kids during these programs?
So we're starting with health checks. When the kids come in, they'll get health checks. They're lined up, social distance lined up to get the health check. I can speak to junior guards, for example. We've got 3 sets of 8 discs, little round discs. They'll get their health check. They're spaced out, and they'll sit on that disc for first half hour is just kind of introduction. It's stretch. So there's social distance with masks on through that. We do an exercise portion that's about an hour, 45 minutes an hour, where they'll go for a run, they'll go for a swim, and we'll send the pods off, individually. The swims, we try and stagger the kids, on their swims as well. They'll come back for some book work, again, a half hour back on their dots. And so we try and do that throughout. I know they're doing the, real similar to that for the day camp program as well. Kids will show up, get their temperature check, go to their dots, stay within their groups. We're following the county guidelines, keeping siblings together. If you've got a 6-year-old and you got an 11-year-old, typically they'd be in separate groups, but for this instance, they would be in the same groups. And we're keeping the groups together, day in and day out, so they're not kind of crossing over amongst themselves.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Captain Hockey?
Yes, ma'am. Captain John Hawking. Over the weekend, it was very busy for the deputies, including Monday or Sunday night. The deputies arrested 8 people. There was 2 for shoplifting theft, There was reported that a male and female stole a shirt and a hat, and the deputies basically sat down on a Crescent, waited for them, and the female came in wearing the stolen shirt, and she had a little hole in it where she forced the security device off it. We were able to get both of them to Avalon Station Jail and get the stolen items returned. We had 3 domestic violence incidents. One is more noteworthy, that the suspect had a $1 million bail, a warrant for an attempt murder on the same victim that he assaulted this time. So we were able to transport him over town, and LAPD is the agency that had the outstanding warrant. So we worked with them on that. We had one DUI driver driving under the influence of alcohol, and when they got him into the jail, he had narcotics concealed on his person, so he was additionally charged with that. And we had 2 drunken publics. One of them was a visitor to the island that was over by the basketball courts yelling sexual comments to women as they walked past, and they were extremely vulgar. Turned out that he was extremely intoxicated, and after de-escalating the situation for about 15 minutes, he finally agreed to be put in handcuffs, so the deputies did not have to use force on him. The other drunken public was 10 people were on the Catalina Express ready to leave. There was one party, a group, and they were uncooperative, wouldn't wear their masks. Working together with the Catalina Express, they asked them to leave the boat. They left the boat. There was basically one instigator out of the group, and he was extremely intoxicated. That's what started the problem, and the deputies ended up arresting him also. And it was a busy weekend.
Were all those cases visitors?
Yes.
All the domestic violence were visitors as well?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. They were
Not 100% sure. I would have to look, but I believe so. I can tell you right now.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, yeah, let me see. This domestic violence was Canoga Park. Another one was in Long Beach. The other one was Rialto.
Okay.
And yes, no residents for domestic
Oh,
violence.
that's good.
And if you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works. A couple items. Last meeting, I reported that Public Works received additional resources. We're back up to 60% of our regular schedule with our staff, and that's until Labor Day, at least at this point. This has allowed crews to further clean visitor areas as well as complete essential projects. And make note that the street sweeper is recently back in service, so some of the upper streets, there's a lot of trash and a lot of organic debris around. You should see that's already starting to improve, but it needs a couple passes with the street sweeper to get in better shape. So we should see that much improved in the near future. And then you should probably notice that we're out there on Muscle Beach with our equipment, with our new excavator, and we are repairing the saltwater intake line that feeds all the saltwater reservoirs for the city. We previously tried to make a repair. The fitting is underneath the seawall. We were not successful in making that repair because it's got a couple complex angles, so now we've got to get down and we excavate to the pipe, remove a section of the pipe and put 2 mechanical couplings in there, and so that's what we're doing right now. It should take approximately a couple of weeks to complete the repair, and the reason for that is we have to work with the tides and the time of day and getting all the equipment and material down there in the site. That's what I have. Any questions?
I'm just curious, when did that spit of land get called Muscle Beach?
Oh, God, years ago, there used to be, yeah.
From when I was a kid.
Beach, right? Yeah.
Palapa Beach, that's what I remember.
Before it was
called.
Palapa Beach, it was
Huh.
Muscle Beach.
It was Muscle then pull up.
I've heard both.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yeah, okay, thanks.
We used to have bars there. Guys would go there and work out.
I thought it was just since Bob been hanging out there. Oh, sorry, was that on?
Matt Baker, Finance Director. I just wanted to provide a quick update. I had auditors on site last week for some interim test work. They'll be back again in October for the fiscal year 20 audit. And then we've also, Finance has been focusing on the budget, and I think we have a tentative date for August 12th for a budget study session with the goal of hopefully adopting the fiscal year 21 budget in the second meeting in August. Unless there's anything else, that's all I have to report.
I responded to August 11th, I believe, right? But
Yes, I know I spoke to 3 of you about a possible Wednesday date of the 12th because the 11th was going to work out with everybody, so.
Oh, so it was moved to the 12th?
The 12th will work out better for me.
12th's good for me.
12's great for me.
Okay.
And for the public to know that we will have a budget study session on August 12th.
Okay.
From
9
12.
to noon.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, any other staffers? Okay. City manager report.
I just wanted to say on the next council meeting on August 4th, we will bring back outdoor dining, and that's to provide you with an update and get any further direction. We will discuss I'm assuming that the governor is going to extend that, so if you wanted to start charging a fee or not, so all that will come back on August 4th. Jim has done an amazing job controlling everything, and whenever there's been any complaints, he has reached out to that business. Public Works has reported that each of the restaurants every night are doing an amazing job cleaning up the sand. They've only been asked to do one additional thing, and that's to try to help sweep off the bricks, since we don't want it to cost us money since we're not charging. Everybody's been very agreeable to things, and any time we've received a complaint, the restaurants have responded appropriately. I know you were provided a letter from Michael and I to Avalon Environmental, CR&R, about our complaints, and we are meeting with them on Thursday for a few hours to go through everything, as well as we'll have BB&K on the phone. And I think that's it.
And I commented at 9 o'clock or whatever yesterday, the trash was coming down the alley, and today spot on with the street sweeper, and they were doing a very careful job today. So thank you for the letter, and if that's going to start getting them squared away, that's awesome for all of us. Cool. Okay. Michael, did you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. City attorney, anything?
Not tonight.
What did we say?
Not tonight.
Oh, not tonight. Okay, thank you. Council member report?
Well, I just want to give a quick little thank you to Dan, Catalina Broadband, Alejandro Barriga. We've been able to help a couple undocumented families that are struggling financially with gift cards. It's been really nice to be able to do that and just, see how appreciative they are.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Great. Okay. Lisa? Nothing? Michael?
I have a couple things. First, because I'm such a big proponent about wearing a mask, Autumn with Bay of the Seven Moons is doing thank you for wearing a mask. Thank you for wearing a mask. So I brought one for Cindy's got one, so I brought one.
I've got one too.
Oh, you got
Yeah.
Autumn did let us know that she had more, so we will be reaching out to her to get some for a City of Avalon employees.
Great.
It just makes it less confrontational when you point up the badge, but she's giving them away free. So if you can stop by and pick them up, this is a great idea.
Yes.
And then second, I wanted to thank Captain Hawkins for spending some time with me today and discussing the things that we talked about. I appreciate you listening to me. I'm going to go on a little rant here. My Hispanic community, I'm proud to be of Mexican descent and so proud of that. But my Hispanic community here on the island, where people are afraid to go to work because they don't want to get sick, but yet you're allowing your children to hang out all over town at night without a mask, 15, 20 of them. I have a problem with that. So if you're trying to, if the parents are trying to protect their kids, make sure they're home. Make sure they're wearing the mask. This is so frustrating to me that they're not wearing the mask. But I had a nice discussion with Captain Hawkins about having the deputies get them to go home. I mean, I want people to enjoy themselves, but there is a pandemic going on, and I don't want anybody here getting sick.
That was a nice rant.
That's my soapbox.
I will just add to that I was down on Front Street a couple times in the last week in the evening and saw the same groups of, they are local kids. I know at least 3/4 of them that are having a great time, which I love to see, and I miss seeing their faces and the laughter, but you know, there's a lot of disrespect that happens when restaurant owners down there or others are asking them, you know, hey, please put on your mask. There's been a lot of disrespect, and you know, none of us want to wear a mask. We wear a mask to be respectful to ourselves and to our fellow humans around us. So it definitely is just another one of those things that needs to start at home. So please, you know, encourage your kids, and also have your kids understand that if somebody reminds them to wear a mask, that it doesn't mean that they get an open ticket to be rude. It just means that, you know, I'd like to be protected too. So thank you for bringing that up, Michael. And on a happy note, I unfortunately missed the meeting myself personally, but I was installed as the first vice president of the Gateway Cities Council of Government. And of course, I said last year when I went into the second vice president seat that it is absolutely an honor to serve for the community as well as my greater community in the Gateway Cities. So I'm really looking forward to the next 2 years of service. And thank you, Avalon, for allowing us to participate, because this is a huge, huge benefit for our city to have regional experience, knowledge, and regional power behind us.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's it.
Nothing to report? Thank you. Okay, presentations.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Mike Parmer, Assistant City Manager. I'm here to introduce a couple people. I've got Russ Badeau, Jack Thickman, and Julie Gilbert. Russ and Jack are with Moffitt and Nickel, and Russ is the current Vice President of Coastal Engineering, and his colleague is a coastal scientist. Julie Gilbert is a sub-consultant who's going to be working on community engagement. And I'm really excited to have them here. They're going to be talking a little bit more in depth about a recent project that the city has been undertaken. Recently, the city was awarded a grant from Caltrans to look at the city's critical transportation and coastal infrastructure and develop engineering recommendations to make it more resilient to the effects of climate change. And so this plan is going to be building on the city's sea level rise and climate change adaptation plan. And with that, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to pass that over to Russ, who's going to go into a little bit more about what the actual plan is and where we're headed over the next couple years. So with that.
Good evening, Mayor Marshall and members of the City Council. So, as Mike indicated, I'm going to talk to you tonight about the this next study that we're just about to, that we have embarked on, which is a sea level rise and climate change adaptation for transportation infrastructure. And so it'll just be a brief kind of a number of slides to go over the project, and then certainly be happy to entertain any questions you have. So a little bit of background, we completed a sea level rise vulnerability assessment back in 2019. So what that is the vulnerability assessment that identifies areas of vulnerability or identifies either present or future potential problems and when they might occur in the future. So that's step one. And then the next step, which is what we're into now, is the adaptation process. In other words, okay, here's the vulnerabilities. Let's prioritize them and take care of the ones when they need to be taken care of. And these ultimately feed into updated and certified local coastal program that are required by the Coastal Commission as planning documents to move any of these projects forward in the future. So we completed our vulnerability assessment back in 2019, and California regulations mandate for any future planning projects that rightly so we consider climate change and sea level rise. This is required for general plans, local coastal programs, and any resources, in the tidelands. Sorry, I hit that by accident. Oops. Come back. Oh. Sorry about that, folks.
Don't worry.
Jordan's back there on it.
Let him fix it.
The man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jordan. Thank you. Okay, looks like we're back on track, and I'll watch my trigger finger there. And so the first step was the vulnerability assessment, as I indicated, which is the first step to update the Avalon Local Coastal Program. And so we did the project there. On the left is that to cover the report that we did, completed in 2019. We applied the guidance that's mandated by the California Coastal Commission, the sea level rise policy guidance, and one of the things that they require is use the best available science to guide the vulnerability assessments. And so currently that is the state of California sea level rise guidance, and that is updated about every 5 years, and the next update is underway right now. I'm not sure what's going on.
So Jordan's
Should
back
I
there.
be-
Jordan's working on it.
Yeah, Jordan will work on it.
Is he? Okay, all right. I wasn't.
Something's not stable right now.
Okay,
Oh, there he is.
okay.
Quiet as this dais has ever been.
I'm trying to find thinking of something funny to say, and I just can't think of anything.
That is so not like you.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate to wear Marlin face masks as a council member on the dais?
What?
Well, let me tell you.
Marlin?
Not a,
Marlin Club face mask.
Oh,
not a business one. Yeah. It's the, I just remember you can't advertise. Yeah.
You're not on the boat tonight going home at 7:30?
Not anymore.
Well, we'll see. We had a nice boat ride over, though, you know.
Were there going to be a lot of pictures?
Yeah, it tends to be not a lot of text. I always try to keep these kind of light and interesting.
No, as I was
so.
saying, if you know your text, so...
Yeah, sure.
Here we
Looks
go.
like we're
Oh,
good.
yeah, look at all the pictures. Okay.
Okay. It looks like... Maybe I'll wait till I get the green light.
All right. That looks like you're right on. Oh, there's still this election to the... So, so if I get a new computer and I have the old one that's got my city stuff in it, and then I get a brand new computer, I don't have to carry all that stuff into the new one, right, if I don't want to, but then what do I do because if there's everything...
You probably want to get a USB, a little thingy and put it in.
Put it in
and save
there?
it again.
Okay, because if ever anybody needs
Yes,
stuff
for
from
a
my...
records request, you should put it on a thumb drive, Annie.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Jordan.
Just needed a Mac.
Good job, Jordan.
I didn't touch it.
Hey, we can look up here, though. This is good.
Oh, we can look up
Okay.
here.
That'll be the next one. Okay, got it. Okay, all right, better hurry.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what the primary findings of the vulnerability assessment. And so this is just an overview on the left of Avalon Bay. And so for a vulnerability assessment, we first look at vulnerabilities to coastal flooding and erosion right now, and then we look at different increments of sea level rise. And it's just easier to do in even increments. So we looked at 2 feet, 4 feet, and 6 feet. And so what we see, the blue shading is not a lot of that. That's just present vulnerabilities. And this represents vulnerability right now of a 100-year storm, so a very rare event that occurs. So these are extreme conditions. So not a lot of vulnerability except maybe over at the Cabrillo Mole area that's blue. And then with 2 feet of sea level rise, obviously, you would expect more vulnerability. So at the green, we see some vulnerability over near the Green Pleasure Pier and some of the other tourist serving areas and just along the close shoreline perimeter. Now, as we get into 4 feet of sea level rise, I mean, that's getting up there. You see, and that's in yellow. And again, this is during a 100-year storm event. We see the areas of vulnerability, which would be basically coastal flooding. That's in yellow. And then the 6 feet of sea level rise would be in the red color. And when we look at these, as you all know, it's not typical storm events on the coast, which are winter storms that come out of the northwest. At Catalina, the primary vulnerabilities are either major swell that comes in due to tropical storms, and the last really big one was Hurricane Marie back in 2014, I believe, that caused a lot of flooding and things like that. And then the Santa Ana conditions in the wintertime with the strong winds out of the northeast.
He's not touching anything.
Yeah, right.
This is like...
While we can protect against climate change, we can't protect against technology.
Good thing Jordan was here tonight.
So we've seen areas of vulnerability, obviously, as you can imagine, as it increases in increments of 2 feet, vulnerability increases. Now, one of the things that Avalon and Catalina in general has going for it is there's a lot of vertical relief, which is really good, but there are low-lying areas which you have your vulnerabilities. And so what about these 2 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot? When might we expect these challenges to occur? And so we use the best science available, and so this is prepared by the California Ocean Protection Council. And so just looking at the graph, okay, so we say, okay, 2 feet. When's 2 feet going to happen? One thing about these curves that you'll notice is they're all concave upward. They all curve like this because what that says is sea level rise, no matter what model you're using, it's expected to get worse further in the future. So that's one thing to notice. So the 2 feet, the highest curve is the worst case condition, and that's one that is extreme. Well, it's a moderately high projection. It's about 1 in 200 chance, and that tells us that we're going to hit 2 feet of sea level rise in about 2050. But if you say, well, you know, I don't think it's going to. I like better odds than that. If you start to get into that pink area, that's more likely, and it tells us that the 2 feet isn't going to happen until you get at least into 2075. So it's all about the statistics and what the models are telling us. 4 feet, on the other hand, if you use the 1 in 200 risk factor, then that's going to happen maybe in 2075, and it's not likely to occur even before 2100. And so on and so forth. But when we're talking about, particularly with the Coastal Commission and trying to plan for important infrastructure that has a very important value and difficult to adapt to sea level rise, and you're probably going to be looking at some of these lower probability scenarios. And so that's why we're taking a look at those as part of this analysis. So now, the step we're in now, this project is well, what do we do? And the city was able to get some funding through Caltrans to say, okay, let's come up with an adaptation plan for your transportation infrastructure. And so that obviously has to do with waterfront transportation infrastructure, vulnerable to both current and then future hazards. And obviously, if you consider an adaptation plan, it's got to have a lot of elements. Public outreach is going to be very, very important because there's a lot of trade-offs and decisions that have time and money involved. So the community input is very important. Planning goals engineering goals. There's a lot of different alternatives that be considered. And then economics. Why this is important now is some of these things may be very expensive, but if you have some idea of when they may occur in the future, then you can start planning on funding for the future for some of the projects that you identify as being, well, that one's going to be pretty critical, and we really want to do that. When that has a high priority, we should be thinking about that this time in the future. And then what's going to help guide this is the formation of a technical advisory committee to help guide the decision-making process. So we've basically just been started on this for a few months now. The project team is for the city is represented by Mike Parmer. Moffett Nichols is the lead on this. I'm the principal in charge. I've been working on projects out here on Catalina and Avalon for the last 30 plus years, as well as being an avid boater, so I like to get out here as much as I can. Other folks with Moffett Nichols are listed here. Then we've got two sub-consultants. We've got Michael Baker International. They're providing the economic impact analysis. And then Julie Gilbert is our community outreach liaison. So we're going to be focusing on transportation elements for this next plan. And so if we just kind of follow on this graphic from west to east, over on the west end at the other side of Pebbly Beach Road, that's called the industrial area. There's Southern California Edison. There's as you all know, a small boat yard and things like that. So that starts there, and then we've got Pebbly Beach Road that wraps around all the way to the Cabrillo Mole, which is item number 3, and then to the shoreline, and then we wrap around the shoreline. We've got Avalon Bay as which includes the mooring and boating infrastructure, and then we've got just the Avalon Bay waterfront. So these are the 5 focus areas for the adaptation plan. The scope of work, the kickoff and project launch was back in February. We're a good deal through item number 2, which is the data inventory and baseline conditions, and that's we'll wrap up probably next month. And then we'll get into the public outreach and engagement, which will be about a 6-month process. And I'll jump ahead. I know Jake is going to talk about this, but community outreach is a real important aspect of these projects, to get people in early on and get ownership of some of the processes and are part of the process going through. They own it at the end of the day, and so it turns to be, our experience has been a much better product at the end of the day, the more folks that are involved throughout. Adaptation concepts and alternatives analysis, August through May 2021, and then the adaptation plan by December of 2021. And so Jake Thickman with Moffett Nichols is going to talk to you about the public engagement plan and next steps.
Is it Jake, is your name? Okay. Next time you come, you can wear your Hawaiian shirt. But you were smart, you didn't wear a tie, so thank you very much.
Hello, Mayor, council members. I just wanted to give a quick overview of our, a little more detail on our engagement plan.
Jake, can you speak in a little bit?
Yes, sorry about that. So the main purpose of this engagement plan was to inform and engage community stakeholders to guide the transportation planning process. From our end, it's kind of based around these 3 principles of information for us, validation of the concepts we put forward, and ultimately kind of guiding the final path that's going to be selected. So we took a 3-pronged approach to this engagement effort. The first one is the formation of the technical advisory committee that Russ had mentioned. We envision this being a group of city staff, community leaders, social leaders within the city, around 9 to 13 members that can form a sounding board for the project team as we continue through the process. That's going to be supplemented as well by a website for the entire project, which will include an online platform for engagement such as community surveys. We have the ability to host virtual outreach events through that platform as well. And then ultimately we'll be hosting public work sessions. The that consist of multiple opportunities for the community to engage directly with the project team so that we can solicit feedback and gather information on community values and if we have a concept to put forward, what kind of reaction that's going to garner from the community. So the general structure of the plan moving forward is that the advisory committee would be met with sort of before and after these major public work session efforts, and the website and online platform would be going maybe 2 weeks prior, 2 weeks after with surveys, and any materials we produce will be hosted on that throughout. So if someone isn't able to make the meeting, or they're not able to do the survey, or they miss the window, they can still go on, engage all the materials that we have produced. And then the next steps, again, we're really emphasizing that technical advisory committee. That's going to be the sort of the launching point for us to really move forward with the project, to get feedback on the baseline information we've collected, see if that meshes well with the advisory committee's opinion on things. Work toward finalizing a draft of the baseline conditions assessment, and then going ahead and planning for that public work session number 1, which we do have the ability to host either here on the island or remotely if that becomes necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we're happy to take any questions.
Is anybody else going to speak from your staff? So this is kind of a naive question, but so we're dealing with transportation, and that basically that transportation is how to get goods and services to Avalon, as well as visitors and residents alike, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But if sea level rises to 2 and 4 feet, and it goes back as far as you're saying, we will not have a front street. We won't have businesses there. So who will come to Catalina?
So I can start to answer that while Dan's doing that. The whole purpose of the plan is to look at strategies to help mitigate that. So what we're trying to do is prevent that scenario from even happening. So I know Russ could probably speak a little bit more eloquently, but there's some engineering solutions that they'll be taking a look at to say, how do we make ourselves less vulnerable so that as sea level rise does occur, because we can't stop that, but what we can do is modify our built environment and change the physical structures so that we protect ourselves from coastal flooding in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, Mike, that's pretty much it. What those vulnerabilities show is with the conditions that are on the ground now without taking any adaptation. So, for example, let's say that the one adaptation strategy may be, let's put a seawall up, and everything will be fine, most days out of the year, but with really high tides and a storm, then you may need to, you'll have the seawall, but you may close off, walkways through the seawall such that you have some protection. In other words, what you do is it's kind of like the strategy is called kind of like holding off the sea. That's one adaptation strategy. So that could be one thing. Another thing, if you don't want to have a structure like that, is maybe you accommodate that by again, these flooding occurrences are those 1 in 100-year events or something like that. You may do something, you accommodate it by flood-proofing, things like that, and just deal with it. Or maybe in some areas that are really low, you raise them up. You do something to manage the floodwaters, but the purpose of this next step is to identify adaptation strategies, alternatives, such that if you do get the sea level rise, how you might deal with that.
Oh, so because you're talking about the transport, so it will include everything. It's not just the transportation.
This step is the transportation elements, but it's not just to and from the island, but it's transportation on the island.
Okay.
So the road from Pebbly Beach Road, into the town, and pedestrian access, the Cabrillo Mole, things like that. So, I mean, you adapt to make those more resilient to sea level rise. it'll help other areas as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and the one thing I would like to just point out too, because it's a huge component of this and we didn't really talk too much about it, is we understand that not everybody has the same access, equitable access to different modes of transportation. So not everybody owns a golf cart or a car. Some people rely on either walking or wheelchair access. So we'll be looking at all of those modes of transportation, but more importantly, we'll be looking at how it adversely impacts different populations within our community. So as people are more disadvantaged, we want to make sure that not only do we hear their voice, but we're adapting strategies to accommodate their needs, current and in the future.
Okay. So it's not just boat transportation, it's all transportation?
No, all modes of transportation.
Yeah, and part of the elements that are required for these analyses there's technical, but there's also social justice and things like that, which all these important elements all come into the decision planning goals, the decision process.
Okay, great. Council, community?
I'm good. The only question I have, we tend to see massive impacts from 30-year storms as well as 100-year storms. I know this may address some of that already, but don't know if that's something that's, considering the storm in the 80s that we had, the storm that we just recently had, knowing that that's coming much sooner than a 100-year storm potentially, if that is part of that assessment as well, just to make sure that it's not left out.
Yes, it will, because it'll be like a kind of a risk-based analysis. So these are just examples of, because that's the typical one you look at as a 100-year,
yeah.
But there'll also be like graphics and things like that. And what's interesting is like what's now a 100-year event in the future will be like a 30-year event just because of, rising sea levels and changing climate and things like that. But all the information will be in there to make those assessments.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You said you guys were going to organize a committee. I think that's the next step. Is that within the next month?
Yeah, we're putting together the list right now. We've held a couple meetings and we've identified some community leaders, residents, stakeholders. This is not an exhaustive list. If you get too big of a group, then the voice gets lost, so we're trying to find the balance. So we should have that committee established within the next, I'd say, 2 to 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we're good for now, and we'll see you soon. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And oral communications, this is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on items not on the agenda. You will be limited to 2 minutes and no action will be taken. Thank you very much. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you.
Tim?
Hey, good evening, Mayor Marshall, fellow council members. My name is Tim Foley, U.S. Bank Branch Manager, and I wanted to provide some updates.
Just a little closer to the mic. Thank you, Ben.
Okay. I wanted to provide some updates regarding the bank. So as you guys have heard, our hours, recently changed. Effective yesterday, Monday, July 20th, our branch hours are now 9:30 to 4. Monday through Friday, closed on Saturdays. To help alleviate the lines, we're going to be utilizing 3 teller windows as staffing permits. We're still encouraging the use of ATM and Night Drop, and of course we have great mobile and online platform, and we provide a tool called Co-Browse in which our bankers can remotely help customers who can't make it into a branch. I want to also add for the business community, we are still taking PPP applications, Payment Protection Program, until July 29th. So for those who haven't applied, it's on the third wave. Congress just recently passed that, and you can apply with funding by August 8th. Any questions?
No, but it's nice to see you here.
Thank you.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
Are you guys having any issues with the coin shortage that's happening on the mainland or elsewhere?
Good question. Yes. We have been stocked, took some measures. I mean, we're self-sufficient here on the island. So I want to thank the committee who has taken coin and allowed us to roll it. So we actually distribute that coin. We haven't, per se, been affected, but the amount of coin that I can order is limited.
Oh, great. So, and Whitey's still doing it?
Whitey's still doing it. So we are still taking appointments for coin rolling, as well as, new accounts and I drop, but Whitey is still doing it.
Great. And why are they in short supply?
There's not as much change happening, right?
Yeah, based on the shutdown, so change is not being circulated, and plus the U.S. Mint has had limited production.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Questions of Mr. Foley? Okay. Nice
Thank you,
to
guys.
see you here.
Thank you.
Tim, I'm so sorry. What is, if, for those that do change orders?
Yes.
What is the fax number that you prefer they send an order in?
Yes, 310-510-1699.
1699. Okay,
Yes.
and then do you, can people call and make an appointment to pick up and not wait in the line, or does everybody need to wait in the line?
Pretty much, for now, we're just having them wait in line. So we are taking appointments for coin rolling. We're taking appointments for safe deposit, entry. Of course, new accounts, anything that's maintenance related, we are, of course, taking appointments. But as far as merchants, for now, for social distancing and CDC guidelines, we're just having everyone in line. Since our hours changed this week, and plus we've been utilizing the third teller since last week, the lines themselves has been moved a little smoothly, so.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Anybody else out there? No, Captain? All righty, let's go to the consent calendar.
Michael, any comments?
No comments.
Oh, thank you.
We have 5 items this evening on the consent calendar. The first one is minutes from the July 7th, 2020 regular city council meeting. We have warrants for a total disbursement of $1,018,784.90, and that's for the period of June 27th through July 10th of 2020. Third one is the Law Enforcement Services Agreement with Los Angeles County, and recommended action is to adopt the resolution notifying the County Board of Supervisors of the city's desire to receive the specified law enforcement services from LA County Sheriff's Office, and authorizing the expenditure of the COPS Grants Fund, and to authorize the city manager to execute the City-County Municipal Law Enforcement Services Agreement for fiscal year 2021. I also provided you up at the dais the agreement that we assigned with LA County in 2017, and it's for a 5-year period and expires in 2022. The fourth one is for the fireworks on Labor Day weekend, and that's recommended action is to approve the staff's recommendation to not pursue the fireworks for Labor Day at this point. The fifth one is the League of California Cities annual voting delegate and alternates. It's to appoint the mayor as the voting delegate and the city treasurer, Ole Olson, as the alternate voting delegate, and to adopt the resolution designating a voting delegate and alternate for the annual League of California Cities conference in October 2020. The reason we do have the treasurer there instead of another council member is because when Ole was on council, he was our big representative with the League of California Cities, and he was on several policy committees and attending those things up in Sacramento. And with the COVID situation happening and our new council members, they haven't had the opportunity to become involved in the League of California Cities yet. So that's our recommendation.
Well, I'm sure there might be at least one question on item number 3, so maybe pull that one, the law enforcement agreement. And council, anything else to be pulled?
Can I pull item 5, but it's just a question about item 5 for the future?
Sure.
You just want to ask it?
Yeah, just talking about the different committees and things that we're participating in and have membership in, if we can look at potentially having that be more rotational, if everyone is up for. I think everyone that's on the council is wanting to be interactive and wanting to contribute. I'm perfectly okay right now as it is to have Ole as a secondary for right now, which is great, and I appreciate that, Ole. Thank you. But just would like to also get more involved as we can. So
I did have a conversation also with Councilmember De La Rosa that has expressed a desire to be active, and I know at the next meeting we're having Michael Ponce represent the contract cities one, so it's nice that we have 5 members that want to be active.
That is very good.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
I fully support it, except unfortunately I can't relinquish the Gateway Cities because I'm on the the slate to go to presidency, so I can't just have somebody step into
And
that.
that makes sense, sure.
But I think like our contract city, SCAG, that would be great.
And then we'll also have more opportunity to get involved with League in when they start setting up their policy committees. They'll ask for volunteers who would like to, and now that everything's going virtual, that's a really good way instead of having to go twice to Sacramento and then one time around here somewhere. And that's a really good way of getting involved, especially in those types of things that you have your interest in. So I was on community services and tax and revenue, scariest one, tax and revenue. But you can feel it out. And then we're all invited to attend the board meetings for both contract cities and the division meetings of the League of California Cities, the LA division, and they will send those emails so you can just and you can join. So it's really good to get involved and to be and I know August they're doing both the installation of the new the division officers and the same thing for contract cities, and those came out either yesterday or today.
I just want to verify that all the council is reading.
I would note that for the August meeting, it's going to be via a webinar, and that Sheriff Valenzuela will be the speaker, so that's a good opportunity to participate in that one.
And I wanted to verify that all 5 council members are receiving emails from all of those boards?
Yeah.
Are you getting one from the League of California Cities?
Yes.
Okay. Just because they reach out and they always ask for the change of council members, and I want to make sure you're always included on the emails.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay, is there a motion on the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve items 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any comments? Call for the vote.
Councilmember LaVille?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
And Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Does anything from council?
On item number 3?
Yeah.
No. Oh, not from me.
Okay. I just have a little question. How do we, this is just, our special rate is an approximately $24,600 savings per deputy. However, the deputies here get a bump in pay for coming here, don't they?
There is a subsistence, yes, and yes, Mayor.
Okay, and we still save $24,000 per deputy. That's pretty amazing to me. I mean, it's good. And I really liked the report when you talked about the number of what we actually get, when we get the station commander, I don't want to say thrown in, but, and all of the other things that we get, and we only are paying for 5 deputies, but we get all the others, so, and the dispatcher, so that was a good report, and it laid it out really well, I believe. Okay, is there anybody outside or on the horn there with you, Michael Palmer?
I've received no comments.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, I'm Paul Johnson. I'm behind the mask. Thank you for reminding me of the July 2nd meeting last year, where the LA County Contract Cities did come to the island and talk with us, so thank you. At that meeting, they talked about the clerical error, about the Catalina Deputy Pay Code. They discussed how growth deputy options work. They discussed young and close to retirement deputies. And they also discussed the history of growth on Catalina, which included an increase in deputies in 2005 from 4.5 to 5. They also said, and I quote, "Our contract managers, they manage our contracts daily. They look at it, they manage it throughout the year, and they spot mistakes and correct it. They work with the cities, with the captains, to be sure we provide a service and a contract that's fair and adequate to provide the law enforcement services. Today's agenda item is to approve another one-year contract. And on attachment A, page 2 of 3, it'll be page 17 of your packet. Down the list, it says, license detail acts on violations observed within the city. And it is marked with a no. So I sure hope this doesn't mean that the sheriffs do not have to enforce violations that are observed. Do you guys see that? Halfway
It's
down
on
the page.
page 2 of 3 of the contract that's just before you. And John can speak of why it says no.
Okay.
I'm just wondering. To me, that sounds like they don't have to enforce things that they observe.
Not correct.
Is that correct? Oh, I'm glad that's.
Good question, though, Carl.
And then I also do not see the sheriff's agreement attached to the agenda this time, and I would like to know if the sheriff's agreement is the same as last year. Since the sheriff's agreement was not attached to this agenda, I would assume that the same expectations are set for the new contract.
Is it the general services agreement that you're talking about, Carl, that we signed in 2017?
The one that was attached in last year's.
I don't have that before me, so I don't know. The only contract I would think it would be this.
Yeah, it's got the section 2.6 that says what they're supposed to perform. What's that?
That's not what I brought before me this evening, Carl, so I don't know what you have.
Okay, so the sheriff's agreement is not attached, so I don't know what we're agreeing on this year. But if we can assume that the same expectations are set for the new contract, like I said in the last meeting, section 2.6 of the sheriff's agreement says that while performing law enforcement services and functions under this agreement, every sheriff's department employee shall be authorized to enforce all city laws and regulations, including all city codes and ordinances. When I see that it says every sheriff's department employee, I'm thinking of reserves as well. I would say let's look at the laws, regulations, codes, and ordinances that the sheriffs are here to enforce. I could list quite a few of them that are not being enforced, but my time is limited. I'm not here to pick on the LA Sheriff's Department, but to question and hold them accountable for the services that they agree to provide. They are one of the biggest contracts, so it should be examined during tough times like this. If the Contract Cities Department says that they look at it, they manage it throughout the year, and they correct it, then why have they not responded to the city's request for deferment of law enforcement costs that was submitted on April 15th? Do we have a way to review the contract and make sure that the sheriffs are fulfilling their end of the deal? If they are not, how do we get compensated or reimbursed for the lack of services that have already been paid for by the city? I think we need to look at every contract we have and not just assume that the necessary ones, like the fire and police, do not need to be reviewed also. Thank you for listening, and I hope there is more discussion to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Did we want to talk about the reserves at all? I mean, Captain, why don't you address the reserves? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The contract that he's talking about is given out every 5 years. It was given out last year. It's the exact same contract. So nothing has changed on the contract. And the terminology that he used, all Sheriff's Department employees, well, I have secretaries, I have all these people that wouldn't go out and cite. It's the deputies that do the citing, the arresting, and enforcing the law. The secretaries and the dispatchers, they assist the patrol deputy in enforcing the law by answering the 911 calls, by processing the paperwork, and by doing all the other things that they're responsible for. Reserve deputies, Reserve deputies are deputies that get paid by the county $1 a year. They basically are volunteers. They have to go through some training, and most of the reserve deputies have other careers. On the Sheriff's Department, some are doctors, some are mechanics, some are just a big variety of occupations, but they're also interested in law enforcement. So they go through an academy, and there's different levels of reserves. The Sheriff's Department's contract with Avalon does not address reserves at all, because reserves are not part of that contract. The contract is for 5 sheriff deputies. The reserves don't get paid, but when they come over, the city pays for their boat ride, their hotel, their meals, and their parking. So it does cost the city money. So the last council meeting, Carl brought up that we didn't have any reserves for Memorial Day weekend. Well, that was my decision, because why should I tell the city that is going through some financial issues at that time, because tourist visitors are not coming to the island, that I need the city to pay $2,000 or $3,000 for 5 or 6 reserves to come over? If I don't need them, I'm not going to request them through the city. The city can use that money for something else. It has nothing to do with the contract. And I ran that decision by the city manager and the assistant city manager, and they wanted to make sure that we had enough deputies to keep the island safe on that weekend. And we did. I assured them we did. Everybody agreed. Saved the city $2,000-$3,000 for that weekend. So the reserves are completely separate from this contract.
Okay, so what can they actually do then?
The reserves are police officers. They can make an arrest. They can issue a citation. They are like a police officer. However, they are not as experienced as a police officer, a deputy sheriff, because they aren't out on patrol as much as a deputy is. So over the weekend, we made 8 arrests. No reserves are here. They didn't get any of that experience of arresting those people. So they can issue citations. But what we really use them for over here is additional eyes out on the street. If you have reserves out on Front Street, posted at different locations, and I know people have complained, they see 3 or 4 of them standing together. I get all those complaints. But what happens is you reduce crime by having a high visibility of deputy sheriffs out on Front Street. And that's why on a normal 4th of July, it's so crowded out there, and I have reserves they're directing traffic. They're assisting people across the parade line. They're doing all these things. But when there's a domestic violence incident, like the one I talked about earlier, I'm going to have one of our regular deputies handling that incident.
Do they carry a gun though?
Yes, they're regular deputy sheriffs.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
All righty. Any questions or comments? Okay. Carl, did you?
Thank you.
One more little comment?
So I do understand that the reserve deputies are paid when they get here, but they come here and they point people to the restrooms and they point people to the beach, and they are more like guided tours. They're not, when they see something that's an infraction or violation of our code, they turn the other way. Dogs down Front Street, dog poop, you name it. Let's go look at all the codes that the city has. And if they're not willing to enforce them, why do we have them? Why do we have these codes on the books? That's what I'm trying to get at. So we either need to revise our code or revise our sheriff contract, because there's a disconnect. And I just think when we pay for the reserves to come here, and we pay their parking, they pay their food, we pay their hotel room, I think the expectation is that they're not on vacation, they're here to enforce our codes as well. We pay all that stuff, so they are the extra boots on the ground. Whether they're just observing and reporting to a regular deputy or not, I just don't see that we're getting our full contract.
Okay.
So.
And I can answer that. On 4th of July, we had a domestic violence call in the 100 block of Metropole that 2 deputies were handling. I was the captain working that night, and we got illegal firework calls up basically in the flats. And the 2 reserve deputies were my backup there when I went there by myself. And that is why we have the reserve deputies. I'm telling you right now, deputies, captains, sergeants, we're always directing people to the restrooms. Hey deputy, where's the restroom? Hey deputy, what's the best place to eat? I want to get a fish sandwich. We deal with that every single day. And then when they leave, they're happy. They had a positive interaction with a police officer. They love Avalon. They had a great time. And I can't tell you how many times people come up to me out on Front Street and thank me for being out there. And that's just families. Husband and wife pushing a baby in a stroller. Happy as can be that we're out there. And they're happy as can be that the reserves are out there. And, you know, it sounds like to me like Carl doesn't want the reserves over anymore because they aren't out there arresting people and so forth. And if that's the case, that's fine, if that's what he believes. But they are a benefit to us. And we have a new breed of reserves coming over there. They're much younger. They're more energetic than some of them that have been coming over here for 25 to 30 years. You know, we have some reserves that are here right now. 25 years they've been coming to this island on the big holidays when they're needed. And I just want to repeat, I'm not going to call them when we don't need them.
Right.
Why would I wouldn't want the city to use that money for something that we don't need. They could use it on something else. So when I hear you didn't have reserves on Memorial Day, we didn't need them.
We were closed.
We were closed. We didn't need them.
I know that if there's been questions or let's say little issues or whatever, you've always been willing to talk, you know, and come to us and whatever. I appreciate that, and I know if things came forward in the future, we had questions or concerns, you would.
Anytime, anybody can contact me anytime, because the regular deputies I see all the time. The reserves, I only see them when you guys see them.
Right.
That's the only time. So I have briefings with them. You need to separate. You need to, you know, when the big parade's going on, I assign them certain areas. Yeah. But when they're just out walking around, I tell them about the complaints. Hey, somebody saw 3 of you guys standing together. They took a picture. They posted it on Facebook. They're reserve deputies. They aren't going to be like a regular deputy. They aren't trained as well. They don't have as much experience. However, they are out there making a positive impact on the visitors that come to the island.
Okay. So they could give a ticket for no mask and somebody being belligerent?
Yes, they can.
Okay. Yep. Have we issued any tickets, by the way, administrative citations?
No, we have not. We have the procedure in place now, and majority of the people that we come in contact with, we tell them, you need to put your mask on. The ones that don't, they put them on right away. Oh, I'm sorry. They put them on, and it's a husband and wife pushing the stroller.
Yeah.
But by all means, if we get one that is uncooperative, like some of the incidents that we've heard before, we will write the citations. We're fine with that. It's all in place, working with the city manager. We're ready to go on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, can I make a couple comments?
Please.
I just wanted to thank Carl for coming forward and voicing his concerns. I do appreciate that. None of us are perfect, and it's good to have all of our eyes out in our community, looking at everything that we are doing. I think Captain Hawking has heard what Carl has said about the reserves. I will say that we've always wanted a presence during our really busy weekends for reserves to be seen on Front Street. Yes, there's been some complaints that there's 3 of them together. it's nice to have their presence. It helps keeps the peace, and I know that I'm appreciative of the reserves being here. I want to acknowledge also that the reserves, the fund that they are paid for is separate from this, and there's a separate line item in our budget for it.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know the process of how to become a reserve, but is there possibilities of starting it within our community, you know, having whoever wants to maybe choose that as a career path and starting that as their experience?
John, can you answer that?
Yep, here it comes.
Yes, ma'am, and what we look for is people from our communities. That's who we want. And if the reserves are basically for people that don't want to be a deputy, they have other careers or other interests, and they can do that through the sheriff's department. They can contact me directly, and the department puts out reserve academies. They have different dates, and there's different levels. Some you have to be with a sworn deputy sheriff. Others, you can be out on your own. You are just like a deputy sheriff. And depending on, I don't know the dates off the top of my head when the classes are, and I know due to budget cuts, there's all this stuff going on. But I can get the dates. If anybody's interested in that, they can contact me directly. And we also have the Sheriff's Department's volunteer program. That is basically only people in Avalon that volunteer. Sometimes we have some issues with some of them showing up. We get the same people that show up over and over, but we have the volunteer program. They wear a uniform. It's a white uniform. It says Sheriff's Volunteer. We put them out on Front Street with a canopy and a setup for a National Night Out for any type of crime literature, and we basically train them. We have little classes for them, and then, so that would be the lowest level. Then a reserve would be the next level, and then the reserve that's similar. One's called a level 1 and a level 2, and it just matters how interested they are in it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a good question. That was interesting. Yeah, didn't think about that. Okay, anything else? Do you have any calls in, Michael?
No, I have not.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
Who was that, Lisa?
I'm Cindy.
I second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick question before we go.
Yes.
The general services agreement, that's a 5-year signed agreement. Is that something that can be reviewed more regularly than 5 years? Is 5 years standard?
It's 5-year standard
For the copy, for the...
since we got into their contract back in the late 80s or early 90s.
Okay.
Or earlier.
Okay, motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember LaVille?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
And Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Item number 6.
Okay, item number 6 is being removed from the agenda. So we're on to number 7 in general
it's removed?
business.
Oh, okay.
Good evening. Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works again. Item number 7. So this item considers the proposed alternative 2 for the construction contract completion of the Cabrillo Mall Phase 1 contract. So at the June 2nd, 2020 City Council meeting, staff presented 3 alternatives for a supplemental funding request for the construction contract for the Cabrillo Mall Phase 1 project. For anyone in the public that wants more background on this, because that was quite an extensive background that we gave during that meeting, I would refer them to the video of that meeting so they can get further background, see what we're talking about. City Council directed staff at that meeting to provide with alternative 1 as an incremental step and to come back with a further request for alternative 2 as details became clear on the financial condition of the city. We've proceeded with alternative 1 and with that contract completion scenario and are now back with the discussion on alternative 2. And the reason we did that, we wanted to see if time, 4 to 6 weeks, would give us a clear indication of what was going to be maybe a better condition or if there was some additional funding coming from Congress. And to be blunt, it doesn't appear like it's got much better at this point. And so staff's recommendation is to proceed to continue with alternative one and then close out the construction contract under that scenario. And then the remaining work that we have proposed under alternative two would be completed with our next opportunity, which would be under Korea Mall Phase 2. And the contractor that's on the project right now has stated that they would hold the price if that Korea Mall Phase 2 is not too long in the future, which we don't anticipate it because we're working on it right now with the engineering. And we would additionally try to get some commitments in writing from them as they were closing out the contract that they would come back and hold that price, because that's what they said. But realize we do have an additional mobilization cost that could be up to about $100,000 for them to come back, okay? But in the scheme of things, with a major project like that, that is something that could be rolled into that. So what we're asking is if there's any additional discussion, and then give us direction to either proceed as we've recommended with alternative one, or
I just have a question on what that will look like for the mall. Will it still be a construction zone, or will they wrap up all of their equipment and the mall in its entirety will be useful?
So what you'll see when we get done, if we do continue with alternative one, the whole deck would have been rehabilitated, and there'll be new grates throughout all 20 openings. And then the beams, even in those areas of the grates, they would be rehabilitated, but it's in the first 8 beams that we already had rehabilitated in the 90s. Further rehabilitation won't be done to those that extend out over the water there. And so that's where we bring in the scaffold again and then complete that rehabilitation, because we think that there is we could get an additional 5 years of service life out of the condition they're in right now.
Oh, okay.
They weren't as bad, because we already had worked on them, as the rest of what we're working on now, which was really bad, which that's why there is an additional supplemental funding request.
Yeah. Okay. Questions? No. Sounds like it's alternative one, right? Should we direct staff under alternative one to continue?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
And Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Okay, item number 8 can't wait.
This item was at the request of Councilmember Lavelle, and I think she wants to talk about it.
Thank you. This was something that was presented publicly more often after the death of George Floyd. It's a series of 8 immediate steps that are non-budgetary, do not require budgetary approval, are very similar already to what LA County is doing in terms of their safety. Was on the Board of Directors agenda, has since been removed, but is still being discussed. And talked with Captain Hawking a bit about it, with LA County a bit about it, in wanting to just confirm that the City of Avalon, in our relationship with the contract cities and with LA County Sheriff, is in support of these 8 initiatives, which primarily seek to limit police violence, which seek to improve safety both for police and sheriff officers and the general public, and address the use of force on a regular basis. So what I was hoping for is that we could come to a consensus, which I think we kind of discussed slightly, and everyone seemed like they were in an agreement, but to just have a resolution in support of the 8 Can't Wait initiative that can then be both on file for us and presented to the Board of Supervisors as they move forward through this.
And Captain, would you like to speak on this?
Yes, ma'am. The 8 can't wait. They basically, all 8 factors basically mirror the Sheriff's Department's current policy. The wording is a little different on a couple of them. I had a meeting, a conference call today that the Sheriff's Department and the Sheriff spoke on 8 can't wait, and the Sheriff's Department is going through our department policies to make the wording more appropriate or more towards the exact wording of 8 can't wait. So all these recommendations are reasonable. We are in favor of them, and they already mirror a lot of the Sheriff's Department's policies, and we're good with it. It sounds great.
So doing this resolution today would not be in any conflict with...
No, ma'am. No, it wouldn't. Well, yeah, and I appreciate you asking my opinion on it, but my opinion is that we recommend these things.
Well, and I think, fortunately for Avalon, this is like perfect. I mean, we don't have a lot of those volatile, and, we don't have what they have on the mainland. But I just have one question. Requiring officers to give a verbal warning before using deadly force. You give more than one verbal warning, I imagine.
Okay, it just matters and a lot of these, I mean, you can pick any one of these, and I can give you a million reasons why it's good and why it's bad.
Right.
But the bad portion, meaning it still needs to be a policy so the deputies all law enforcement officers can follow it. But no, by all means, if you pull out a gun and you shoot Michael, and I pull my gun out to make sure you don't shoot Cindy, I'm going to yell, drop the weapon, stop. I'm not going to say, drop the weapon because you just shot Michael, and by that time you shot 4 other people. But by all means, it's reasonable. We tell them to drop the gun, drop the weapon, whatever it might happen to be. And it is a little different in Avalon, but you never know. We have people that come out, usually not guns over here, but we have people that come out with weapons, and we have to tell them to drop the weapon. And but overall, we are in favor of these.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Okay.
I did want to also bring up and discuss with you if we will adopt this to also add not using individuals' names anymore on captain logs and newspapers, if we're striving to eliminate this, because it could be a contribution to, racism or systematic racism. So if we could just do that, I know it's a very small change, but it has great effect on people.
We implemented this a few years ago so that maybe there would be a little humility if somebody was doing something wrong. And also, so you're saying they could still do the arrest records, but not, or whatever they do, but
just
not put the
needing to
names?
put someone's name on there, right? Because I feel like if we're going to adapt this, putting someone's name on there kind of contradicts the whole thing.
Explain how, just so that I understand.
Because knowing an individual's name, you don't know someone's actual thoughts of knowing, what race they are. It can contribute to racism, could, have people not hire them anymore because of the name. And it may be one mistake. We're just taking that opportunity away.
That's an interesting concept.
If it's a conviction, it's going to be a public record. Somebody can look it up. There's no need for us to put their name on the newspaper.
And I can tell you, the Sheriff's Department, myself, I write those every single week.
Right.
I am good with whatever the city council wants to do and the community. If they don't want names in them, I won't put names in them. If they don't want the article at all in the newspaper, I'll stop writing the article. Whatever the council and the community wants, that's what I'll do.
I do like seeing the statistics. I mean, knowing what people are, because you've got child abuse, so you've got,
The only thing I'm asking is take away the names, that's it.
Well, the drug dealer thing is kind of a concern to me, because if people are dealing drugs, and I've got kids in town and whatever, might be kind of nice.
So they would get convicted and you can look it up.
And then, or we can write the reports later. Okay. Again, I want you to keep the stats. If you want to take away the names, that's up to us as a council.
I think I'd like to have some further conversation on that. Maybe we could bring it back for another meeting and just kind of think about it. And because there were some, I remember several conversations on name in, name out, name in, name out prior to Captain Hawking. So I'd just like to refresh on that. So maybe if we could bring it back.
Yeah, Denise, is that
Okay, we'll bring it back, maybe the second meeting in August, if that's okay.
Okay.
I think the next one's kind of full, and
Okay.
then John will wait for your recommendation.
Yeah, and so that's not a part of this at all, but it's, okay, perfect.
Okay, so just separately?
I'm sorry?
Separate from this?
It totally is separate from this. Because that was a policy decision.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a policy decision to put it in by the council at the time, so, yeah.
And I'd just like to confirm one thing, until the next meeting when we discuss this, do you want the names in or out? I just finished this week, I have to send them on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. This one's done, so I
Well, it
just
sounds to
need
me like everything you did was with mainlanders, so what the heck?
I think because this wasn't agendized, this is strictly the 8 can't wait rules that,
Okay.
and
So you-
guidelines that we should wait till it comes to council. If I get some cancellations on the August 4th agenda, I will move it to that one. Otherwise, it'll be August 18th, okay?
Okay.
Just proceed as normal and
So business
In
as
case
usual.
there's
for now.
public that has comments on it.
Okay, thank you, good, okay. Is there an action to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution for the 8 Can't Wait edition.
I'll second.
Moved and second, comments? And you have any comments, Michael, on your machine?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I know that was Cindy and Sarah.
Okay. Call for the vote? Oh, we good, Captain? Okay, thank you. Call for the vote?
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
And Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Okay, now I believe we're going into closed session.
Just so the audience knows, we have removed item number 9 from general business, and that will be on the August 4th City Council meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We have 3 closed session items this evening. The first one is conference with the labor negotiators. It's the employee associations of the AHEA, the AMEA, Confidential, IAFF, and Management, and with the designated representative, which is myself, Denise Ratty. And number 2 is public employee performance evaluation, title City Manager. 3 is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. Name of the case is Island Enterprises, et cetera, all versus City of Avalon, et cetera, all. Case number 2011B CV00291.
Great. Okay. And is BB&K going to be on the line with us in any of this?
Scott Campbell will be present, as well as Mike Broniak, and that will be for the Island Enterprise topic.
Perfect. And we'd like to say goodnight, Tony, because we don't know what time we're going to be out of this closed session.
Good night, Tony.
Oh, no, we got rid of this. And we're back from closed session. City Manager?
The City Council has returned from closed session with no reportable action.
Thank you. And good night, Tony, if you stayed up even later. Thank you, Jordan.